Gotten some requests lately to do a lower hydration noodle tutorial, so I might as well go pretty low today and just show you guys how I go about doing a kata style noodle that's like 26% hydration with 14% protein content. And what we have today is Ka all-purpose flour and Ka's vital wheat gluten. And after doing some math, as you can see over here, we found out that we need 3.5% Ka's vital wheat gluten to 96.5% all-purpose flour of the same brand in order to achieve the perfect 14% protein content. So let's get with the method actually. I'm going to start off with our scale. Let's measure out our flour. I'll be doing about 2 portions today. I already have 2 meat noodles, but it's the same, just scale up. We need about 193 grams. That's 194. There we go. And we need 7 grams of vital wheat gluten to give us 200 total. Perfect. So as you can see, we have 200 grams. Give that a mix. And give it a decent mix. You don't have to get it totally incorporated. We'll be sieving this anyway. That's good enough. Now we're gonna sieve this flour. Now let's get to our water. We need 52 grams. That's 52 grams of water. This is sodium carbonate, and we need 0.8 grams. And this is potassium carbonate. We need 3.2 grams. I don't bother mixing, honestly. I'll show you why later. I just pour everything in. I don't give. And then for salt, we need 3 grams. Now that we have everything inside, let's get in with our chopsticks and just mix it up. What I do is I mix in a circle and then I wait, and you can notice how all these little crystals go in the middle, and you just break it up. Go at it one more time. Wait for it, and we only have that little bit left, right? And it takes about 20 seconds. Okay, now we're done. So we have our flour, we have our solution, and now we just add it in. I don't bother one at a time, just dump the whole thing in. And with 2 chopsticks, let's get in there. You just want to go in circles and get all the dough hydrated as well as possible. Once almost all of it has incorporated like this, just get in there with your hands. Just scrub. The dough is so dry, and the purpose is just to hydrate the dough evenly. You really want to spend about 5 minutes doing this, especially for the low hydration dough like this. Just want to clean up the sides. It's this sort of powder. So I've now worked almost all the clumps out. I'm satisfied with it. It's pretty much good enough. I know I can form this into a piece of dough. So let's clean off our hands. Let's get it into the bag. Always sanitize your workstation, but even though it's clean, I'm not going to use this. All right, so I cleared my station. I'm going to wipe it down later. And we have this sandy dough, right? So what you want to do is really just spread it out. So now you have something like this. All sealed. Just give it a few presses. Tuck in the corners so they don't crumble on you. And now we go to kneading with the foot. And what I'm doing is using really just the balls of my feet, as you can see, on the very edges of the bag. And just really compressing it. Compress. Work little areas at a time. I'm working on the bottom right corner of the bag. All right, slowly moving to the center. You can see the outline of the bag. And moving to the bottom side of the bag. And wherever I feel some kind of lump or bump in the dough, I press it down with the sides of my foot. All right, let's check on this dough. As you can see, it has actually come together. You see, it's pliable. It's not breaking. Well, a little bit. You see, it breaks over here. That's fine. Now we want to get more air out, as you can see. And now our focus is to get this kind of crummy area, tuck it back down. tuck it back down, back onto itself. You see how what I'm doing here? I'm tucking it back on itself. Keep tucking and tucking. It's okay if it looks ugly. This is what we got now. It's clearly cracking everywhere, right? It looks fucked, right? It's completely fucked here, right? Now we have to step on it again. And just focus on the edge parts that you were just tucking. Cram it down, get it down. Let's see what we did. All right, it's kind of incorporated, right? All right, guys, it's been an hour resting, and now we're ready to make some noodles. A point I can't emphasize enough is for such a low hydration dough, you really have to focus on keeping this whole thing intact as you're rolling and as you're going through all the steps that are about to come. And so you could, just open up the bag and just rip this whole thing out. But what I found is these edges will start crumbling, and what happens after crumbling is you had to use like a thin pin like this, which is just basically a broom extension. It's super thin and you can apply a lot of pressure on it. Like, you would have to use this to reincorporate all of the broken and crackly pieces that will end up on the board. So what I would do is I would actually cut it out. And this might be something that could affect some of you more cost-conscious people, but of course you can always use a different method, a different bag. You don't have to rest it in one of these. So let's get started. All right. So because this whole sheet is around the same height, the same thickness, slightly higher on this side, I'm gonna cut a little bit towards the left just to portion it out, because we just have two portions here. So we're gonna cut it in half. All right, here we go. Now carefully, very carefully remove it from the bag. We're gonna work on one portion at a time. Very, very carefully. It's very easy to crumble this dough. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sort of roll this out into a thinner piece so we can actually start passing it through the zero setting without too much trouble. You want to apply all your body weight because it's such a hard dough. And this kind of crackling here, it's okay. Just leave that alone for now. As you can see, our dough is pretty thin, right? So now we can begin. At setting 0, and like I was saying, the whole point of what we're doing now is so that the dough doesn't break. This is exactly what we're looking for. Here's a close-up. All right, you can see the crackling, you can see how ugly it looks. That's okay. We're working with 26% hydration here. We're not talking about like 30 or 32. All right, now we're gonna keep passing it through one. Being very gentle and careful as we keep going through the settings. Now we're gonna go to 2. And then 3. I can feel the dough having some elasticity and some strength, which means that it was hydrated properly. And so I'm not as afraid now to go quicker through these motions. So we've gone through 4, right? And what we have here is, we have some formation here and some tearing, which is fine. All right, we've gone through 4. And so after 4, we fold it over. All right, and we use this pin, and we just really try to taper the end off here. What this will achieve is to allow the dough to be fed and to be caught on these rollers as it's being fed. Back at 0 again. All right? So carefully, let's roll this through and see, this is pinching, right? Back it out. We're gonna back that out. So we have to recenter this. Recenter and feed with your hands. So 2 sides are pretty much equal and they don't fold on themselves. All right, so see, this has been incorporated. All right, now we go back to 1. Now 2. And we keep going. 3. This is 6. This table is gonna start wobbling because of the force required, which is okay. And so we could cut this, but because earlier we only stepped on it, right? We didn't actually step and fold and step and fold. We're gonna laminate it one more time. So that's the second time, or was it the third time? I don't know. But based off of what we're looking at here, we can laminate it one more time. I'm gonna fold it over. Make sure it's all flat on itself, and do what we did earlier. All right, taper the edge off. And because we rolled out all the way to 6, we're gonna restart at 1 instead of 0. Because 0 is not gonna achieve anything. You see this pinching? It's all right. It's all right. It's already too late. So I go through the motions again. And 7. Notice how I'm feeding it. It was gonna fold on itself, but my hand guided it through. There you go. If you're not happy with this, fine, you know, it doesn't matter. If you cut it at this point, it'll be totally fine. But let's make one more pass and see what happens. That looks pretty good, right? Now let's cut these little ends off. And now we can cut. No dusting required. How'd you lay it flat? And we just start feeding it and make sure the sheet doesn't go left or right. That's really gonna destroy your noodles. So you wanna put a little pressure here on your palm. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Okay, and now you know that it's gonna feed straight, right? You can let go and use your left hand to crank and grab with the right hand. And there we are. Save these scraps. And we have 26% hydration noodles. That wasn't too hard, was it? I don't dust these, by the way. They don't need to be dusted. It's one portion. Let's do this one more time. This time I'll go a little bit faster. But again, careful, careful. You see this corner? I'm gonna pull it from this angle. Expose it first. And then we're gonna peel back from this side. Just peel it back. And we have to roll it out again. Taper the edges. So that's my full weight on it. You see how it's not moving much? That's okay. It's still moving a bit, right? It's still stretching out a bit. But you really want to focus on the ends. This is already thin enough to pass through 0 without completely destroying the dough. Just really feed it, push down a little bit, not too hard, otherwise you will break your dough again. All right, same thing as before, right? Some tearing, very, very normal. Now we're gonna work it. So that was through 5. Fold it on itself. Taper the edge. Go back to 1. I mean, these dials are kind of arbitrary, right? Like you can do, let's say 3 to 0, 4 to 1, 4. It will just depend on what you're comfortable with. Just remember that when you roll it out and you fold it over, don't do it through the same setting again. 4. So as the dough is filling out, like you really want to make sure, I can't emphasize this enough, with low hydration, like if you're feeding the dough and it's going in and suddenly one part catches or starts folding on itself and the dough starts going this way, then you're going to start getting these effects, and then they start folding on each other. And because the dough is still so weak at this point, as you can see, like a tiny, like barely any force would tear the sheet already. All right, like that's gonna destroy your dough, because that little part's gonna catch like this and then just literally tear the whole piece off. That's not what you want. So you have to feed it very, very carefully. Back to 5. So now we're getting into danger zone, right? So all right, now we have the sheet, and just like before, it's kind of good enough, right? Not for me. We got to go one more time. Laminate one more time. I think I did 3 laminations for each dough, but I also did not step and fold a single time. I just only stepped. So now we should be able to fill out the whole machine. So we were at 6, I believe. Now we're gonna go back to 1. Now we're gonna roll it all the way out to 7 for our second portion. And we're gonna weigh our noodles to see the percentage loss. And finally, 7th setting. I'm pushing to this side because the dough was trying to ride on this side. And because I stopped in the middle, you can see this crease, right? You can't crank this way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to do a smooth motion. If you do fast, okay, it's easy. But if it's slow, you still have to continually apply that pressure. Okay? So because I'm not happy with that crease inside on the sheet, I'm gonna do one more pass. And you see crinkling, right? You gotta really feed it. You gotta feed it. You see how it folded on itself over here? That was not a good pass. Not a good pass. Let's see if we can fix it with one more. Got a little carried away with talking just now. See, it's creasing again and again. And this is really just the nature of low hydration dough. Like, there's not much you can do about this. And this section is just gonna be wasted. You know, like one little mistake, it can cause this. Not much you can do there. So we're just gonna cut and we're gonna discard the edges if they don't come out right. And we have this amount of crumbs. You know, from that one last pass, we got this amount of crumbs. So seriously, pay attention to what you're doing. Always pay attention. Let me try to retrieve all the crumbs. I'll do a rough weighing, like I'm not gonna bring out my bowl or anything. 26 grams. It's pretty much exactly 10%. You know, it's around 260 total. So we lost about 10%. We probably would have gotten like 4% less if the final pass didn't go to incomplete shit, but whatever. So now it's cleanup time. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck with your noodle making.